A week after the Las Vegas attack, gun enthusiasts gathered for an annual gun show in Sacramento. But attendance at this year's event is down about 50%. With hundreds of vendors, those who did show up could find pretty much anything they wanted in the way of guns and ammo that are still legal in California. For now, that includes the AR-15, but not the accessories like a bump stock that made it more lethal in the mass shooting last week.
He was still pulling the trigger every time it went off. And I don't particularly agree that those should exist.
If I were a pilot who owned his own plane, as this man did, I could fill that plane with flammables and dive it into that crowd, causing horrendous devastation. So the fixation on guns, I think, is really misplaced.
The vendor selling the AR-15s did well at the event. He believes it may be because potentially those could be banned soon.
And joining us now to talk about gun control and what's next after the Las Vegas shooting is Congressman Eric Swalwell. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me back.
Well, so I wanted to ask you, after the Orlando shooting, there was a sit-in, there was this mass, outcry in Congress. Why has it been relatively quiet since this last one?
Well, stay tuned. First, here at home, tonight at 6 o'clock, we're having a vigil in Castro Valley. On Castro Valley Boulevard, we'll be honoring people like Stacey Etcheber and Denise Cohen, who grew up in my district, went to Cal High. We're still honoring those who were killed. But last week, we wanted to go to Speaker Ryan and seek a bipartisan panel, a select committee, to look at what we could do, and he turned us down. And so, I was talking to John Lewis, the leader in the caucus, on this issue, along with Mike Thompson from Napa Valley, and I think that there may be action this week to make sure that, there's no more moments of silence, but there's moments of action. That's what we need.
So maybe another sit-in, maybe another slumber party?
Well, it wasn't a slumber party. 26 on the floor, just illuminating the lack of action that the Republicans have taken. And actually, let me step back. There is action on gun legislation. It's just going in the wrong direction. They want to allow silencers, which actually would have made this shooting, kill more people, and more mass shootings in the future could kill more lives. So we're going in the wrong direction.
I heard that the silencer bill is going to be sort of put on the back burner. Is that true?
Thankfully, it has come out of committee. It was supposed to be up in the next few weeks. Right now, I think they've pulled it back. But the direction we need to go in is where most American people want us to be, which is to have universal background checks for people with criminal records and a mental health history, to look at what we can do to know more about people collecting firearms. We can't even have an electronic database of all the weapons that are owned. So when someone goes out and in a short period of time, amasses a number of assault weapons, we probably want to know who they are. And then I personally believe that we have to ban assault weapons. If you're not a warrior, I don't think you should have a weapon of war. And we need to stand up more for legislation like that.
Now, you're in the elevators and in private areas with other members of Congress. Do Republicans ever say to you, yeah, of course, I'd love to support this particular regulation or that particular restriction, but I just can't because I've got this constituency or this potential for being primaried, sort of breathing down my neck?
Well, what I hear is that, at home, the power of the NRA is real, that they will spend a lot of money. And I respect, people's right to protect themselves, their right to go hunting with their family and shoot for sport. I have two brothers who are police officers. They own a lot of guns. My father was a police officer. He'd take me hunting as a kid. I respect that, but I don't think that means limitless access to guns, particularly for people with backgrounds of criminal history.
Now, we've seen the NRA and some Republican members come out and say they would support regulation or potentially banning the bump stock implement. Is that sufficient? Is that just a step in the right direction?
Well, I welcome, banning bump stocks. That allowed this semi-automatic rifle to, essentially be an automatic weapon. But that's not enough. I think the most that we can do is actually to just know more about, who is purchasing firearms. And that's Mike Thompson's universal background check bill.
Now, I wanted to quickly get to this issue of Nancy Pelosi and this Congresswoman Sanchez's effort to call on her and other members of Democratic leadership in Congress to step aside. Sanchez basically is saying, look, we've got Democrats who are leaving Congress because their sort of future has been stymied. They don't see themselves as ever becoming members of leadership. You're a new member of Congress. Do you agree with that?
Well, I'm the 8th senior Democratic member of Congress, and I came to Congress about 5 years ago with Nancy Pelosi supporting my opponent. She put me to work right away, asked me to lead a group called Future Forum, our 27 youngest members, and here I sit at the leadership table, and we have a leadership meeting every week, and I'm the youngest person at that table, and I'm able to, have a voice for, the next generation of Americans. So that's not what I see. What I see is that we have a president who was a businessman president, wrote a book called The Art of the Deal, and each time Nancy Pelosi has negotiated with him, she has outmaneuvered him. And so I think we need to stay focused right now. The DREAM Act is probably the most imminent piece of legislation that we're going to need unity among Democrats right now so that we can help the 800,000 Dreamers who are affected. And that means, skilling and outmaneuvering this president.
What is Linda Sanchez up to with this?
You have to ask her. I just think right now Democrats are largely unified, and we should, stay focused for the people we're representing.
Okay, thank you so much, Congressman Swalwell, for being here this morning. And Kristen, back to you with another look.
All right, thanks.